Welcome to the Friday forecast. Wisconsin in the rear view, Ohio State in the front dashboard. Hey, tell you what, this is a tough stretch. Let's talk about Wisconsin first, Sean. They were disappointed not to come out of Camp Randall with a win, but they are certainly not dejected by any means.
I think Mike Riley used the word, the win was served up on a silver platter for them to take it. And, that's probably what disappointed you. First you had this demon of getting over Camp Randall and beating Wisconsin, which has only happened one time in the history of the Big Ten for Nebraska. But then to have the opportunity to win in Camp Randall when we've seen Nebraska embarrassed in that stadium as much as any games we've covered in our time around this program, that's what was hard to take a little bit, because Nebraska showed Wisconsin had some chinks in the armor. They had the momentum. They get everything to go their way. They just could not get the one play to win the game.
Yeah, no time to feel sorry for yourself because the Ohio State Buckeyes are straight ahead in front of you. Ohio State, though, not the Ohio State that I think most fans would have been fearing about a month ago, right?
That they lost, 18 starters from a year ago, and I think everybody just moved past that when they blew Oklahoma out in Norman. But as they got into the conference schedule, where you've got people familiar with Urban Meyer and his system, people know how to scheme them. They know how to play them, and we've seen teams that you wouldn't think play Ohio State tight do it. Indiana had them in the fourth quarter in a close game. Northwestern had a chance to win the game against them in Columbus. So there have been a lot of these types of games where this has not been your typical 55-0 every week Ohio State team in conference play. And Nebraska goes into this game a big underdog in Vegas, but they were a big underdog last week as well, and they went into Camp Randall and still almost won the game.
Now, I want to ask you that, since they are 2 touchdown underdogs, how much the confidence would be there with the Nebraska team, because they proved that they can play with Wisconsin. That had to give them confidence moving forward to take on Ohio State.
Yeah, it was one of the strangest post games to cover after a loss, because you did not see anybody just down in the dumps. It was like, hey, we proved we can do this. We're in this division race. We're in this league race. We're in the conversation to go to a Power 6 bowl game or New Year's 6 bowl game. And you can just sense the pride guys had leaving Madison, that, we played our butts off. We didn't win. But when you lose at Nebraska, at least lose in a way that people say, I can like this team that was on the field. I like the way they played. And I think that's the feeling as you talk to people, as we got back into the state from Wisconsin. Everybody was sad to see Nebraska lose, but the way they did it, the effort they played with, and that's how Husker fans want to see teams go out and win or lose.
Yeah, Josh Banderas looked like he was ready to play another game, a little doubleheader action. Let's talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes. Mike Weber, Curtis Samuel, and J.T. Barrett, a three-headed monster running the ball.
Yeah, I really look at J.T. Barrett as the guy, though. He is a quarterback and a tailback, and when those running backs have struggled, they will give J.T. Barrett 20 to 25 carries and almost use him as a running back. So you kind of wonder how his body is this point of the year, because they've had 2 or 3 pretty close physical games the last few weeks where he's had to take a lot of hits. And in a lot of ways, they use him like Tommy Armstrong. And, Tim Beck, Tommy Armstrong's former coach and coordinator, helps design the offense for them. So you get the sense Nebraska will have a feel for what they do, but it's Urban Meyer. The talent he has, his coaching ability, and this is going to be a huge challenge.
Asking about J.T. Barrett, Carlos Davis was talking about how much you have to kind of toe the line, being aggressive and yet staying disciplined. How important is that going to be on Saturday night?
That will be the challenge. I mean, this guy was the Big Ten Player of the Year as a sophomore, and then got hurt, and everything. It was actually his freshman year. I think he was the Big Ten Player of the Year, and then everything's kind of gone. He's only a junior, if you can believe that. So we might have another year of J.T. Barrett. It feels like he's been there since Eddie George was there. But it's one of those guys that, he really is their team. They have a very suspect offensive line. I don't feel like their receivers have played well this year, and they lost a lot of guys on defense. So it's a very young Ohio State team. If Nebraska, when you look at the history of this roster of Ohio State, this is the year you'd want to play them in Columbus, because that they're not in rebuilding, but they're about as rebuilding as it gets for Ohio State.
And in closing, I think people are most confident, Husker fans are, in their defense. How many points does Nebraska's offense have to score for them to leave Columbus with a W?
I think it's going to take over 30. Nebraska hasn't scored over 30, I believe, since the Illinois game, right?
I can tell that. You keep talking. I'll look it up.
But you look at the 30-point margin. Nebraska's been in the 20s or in last week's case, 17.
Yep.
And that's pretty rare. I mean, I would like to go back and kind of look at conference scoring numbers for Nebraska. The numbers for Nebraska as on offense for scoring are about as low as we've seen, but the defense has improved. And if the defense can play like we saw Saturday, and Nebraska can find 30 points out there or more, they're going to be right in this game.
Well, it's going to be a fun one either way. It's a 7 o'clock Central Time kickoff. Nebraska and Ohio State, locally and nationally on ABC, locally in Omaha. You can watch it on ABC and KETV. Our pregame show starts at 6 p.m. from Columbus.